the psychology behind the horror. The first scream came before the monster appeared. Sarah realized this later when she tried to explain to her therapist why a movie she watched 10 years ago still visited her dreams. The scene itself wasn't violent. No blood, no jump scare, just a long hallway, dimly lit, and the sound of something breathing, slow, uneven, almost human. Her body reacted before her mind did, heart racing, palms sweating, muscles tightening as if she needed to run. That reaction wasn't weakness, it was biology. Horror, at its core, doesn't live on the screen, it lives in the brain. Fear begins before thought. Deep inside the human brain sits the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure responsible for detecting threats. It evolved long before logic, language, or civilization. When the amygdala senses danger, it bypasses rational thinking and triggers the fight or flight response within milliseconds. That's why Sarah screamed before she knew why she was afraid. Psychologists call this the low road of fear processing, a fast, automatic pathway that favors survival over accuracy. Horror movies exploit this system perfectly. A shadow moving in the background, an off-key sound, a door left slightly open. None of these are threats on their own, but the amygdala treats ambiguity as danger. From an evolutionary standpoint, it's safer to assume the rustling in the bushes is a predator than the wind. Horror thrives in that uncertainty. The fear of the unknown. What haunted Sarah most wasn't the monster. It was never fully shown. Her mind filled in the gaps, and what she imagined was worse than anything a special effects team could design. This taps into one of the strongest psychological triggers of fear of the unknown. Studies in cognitive psychology show that humans experience more anxiety when outcomes are unclear. The brain hates incomplete information. When it doesn't have answers, it creates them, and those creations often lean negative. That's why cosmic horror, psychological thrillers, and slow-burn suspense resonate so deeply with American audiences. Films like The Blair Witch Project or Hereditary work not because of constant scares, but because they deny the brain's certainty. The monster you see is limited. The monster you imagine is endless. Why familiar things become terrifying. Sarah couldn't explain why the hallway scared her more than a graveyard scene in another movie. Hallways were normal, safe. That was the problem. Psychologist Sigmund Freud described something called the uncanny, when something is familiar yet subtly wrong. Modern psychology supports this idea, especially in the concept of the uncanny valley, where human-like figures that are almost but not quite real provoke discomfort. Horror often invades everyday spaces, homes, schools, hospitals, places associated with safety. When those spaces are corrupted, the brain experiences cognitive dissonance, a clash between this should be safe and this feels dangerous. The result is deep psychological unease. A haunted castle is expected, a haunted bedroom is not. Loss of control, the true villain. In therapy, Sarah admitted something else. The scariest moments weren't the threats, it was the feeling of being trapped. Psychologists consistently link fear to loss of control. Research shows that perceived control reduces stress responses even in dangerous situations. When control is taken away, being chased, restrained, isolated, the fear response intensifies. That's why horror protagonists often make bad decisions. It frustrates viewers logically, but emotionally it reflects reality. Under stress, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning, becomes less active, while the amygdala dominates. People don't think clearly when afraid. Horror feels real because it mirrors that truth. Why we choose to be afraid. The question Sarah couldn't answer was the simplest one. If it scared me so much, why did I keep watching? The answer lies in controlled fear. When people experience fear in a safe environment, like a movie theater, the body releases adrenaline and cortisol, followed by dopamine once the threat passes. This creates a psychological relief high. The brain learns that fear can be survived and even enjoyed. This is similar to riding a roller coaster. The danger feels real, but the context signals safety. For many viewers, horror becomes a way to practice fear, to confront anxiety, trauma, or existential dread from a distance. Some studies suggest horror fans may even develop better emotional regulation because they repeatedly experience intense emotions in controlled settings. Fear, paradoxically, can build resilience. Yet, for Sarah, the fear didn't always stay on the screen. Psychologists note that individuals with high empathy, vivid imagination, or past trauma may experience fear generalization, where the brain associates neutral stimuli, like hallways or silence, with danger long after the experience ends. This isn't a failure of strength, it's a brain doing exactly what it evolved to do: remember threats to avoid them in the future. Horror leaves footprints not because it's fictional, but because fear is real. The final truth about horror. In her last therapy session on the topic, Sarah finally understood something that brought her peace. The movie didn't traumatize her, it revealed her. Horror strips away comfort and forces the brain to confront uncertainty, vulnerability, and mortality. It exposes how fragile control really is